Hey, what's going on YouTube, and welcome back to another Season 7 League of Legends Champion Guide. Today, I'm going to be covering mid lane Vel'Koz, the Eye of the Void.
Knowledge through disintegration.
So first, let's cover why you may or may not want to play Vel'Koz. First, he's a very high damage AP carry that has built-in true damage, which allows him to deal with even tanky champions. He's got a pretty long range for a mid laner, making him a somewhat safe pick, and really great poke as well. He then has some pretty solid crowd control as well, which comes from his E's suspension and his Q's slow. As long as you can land these abilities, your combos are going to be a lot easier to pull off. Finally, you have a pretty crazy amount of AoE damage because all of your abilities can hit multiple champions. This makes Vel'Koz, if positioned correctly, a very, very strong team fighter. With that said, however, you are a very skill shot reliant champion. Every single one of your abilities is a skill shot, and obviously you must be landing them to do your damage. As long as you can land your E ability, however, to suspend the target, it will be pretty easy to do. You're then also a very immobile and squishy champion. Of course, this does make sense because you have a lot of damage in long range, but you have to position correctly, otherwise you may end up dying rather quickly. Then finally is your channeled ultimate. As soon as you start your ultimate, people are going to want to get on top of you, which is not the best thing as Vel'Koz. Make sure you position yourself at the edge of a team fight so you can get off your full channeled ultimate and do a massive amount of damage. For your Masteries, you want to go 18 Cunning and 12 Ferocity, grabbing Thunderlord's Decree as your keystone mastery. Thunderlord's Decree will add some nice extra damage into your combos and give you some really good kill potential. It's also going to be pretty damn easy to proc on Vel'Koz because your W ability does hit twice. It's best to combo your W ability with your E because they will be suspended and take both hits, proccing Thunderlord's Decree. For the rest of your Masteries, you want to focus on increasing your damage as much as possible while also getting a little bit of sustain. For your runes, you want to go Magic Penetration Reds, Scaling Health Yellows, a mix of Scaling Cooldown Reduction and Magic Resist Blues, and Ability Power Quints. Usually on Vel'Koz, you're only going to get between 20 and 30% CDR from your items, so you want that Scaling Cooldown Reduction to give you an extra 10%. You'll then want to make sure you get that Magic Penetration and Ability Power so you do as much damage as possible and you can really bully the mid laner. Since we're usually going to be against an AP laner, we want to get that Scaling Health and Magic Resist just to be a little tankier. You may, however, also want to consider having a rune page that does have armor in case you are against something like a Talon or a Zed. For your first summoner spell, you'll want to pick up Flash. You're a very immobile and squishy champion, and it can be used throughout the game to save your life. You can then even use it aggressively to finish off a low health enemy trying to run away from you. Now for my second summoner spell, I'll usually pick up Barrier. It'll give you some really good burst protection, which is great for baiting or just stopping yourself from dying to an enemy's combo. Now Heal is also another pretty decent option. It's another really solid defensive you can use multiple times in a single game to save you, and the movement speed it provides when you activate it as well is great for repositioning in a fight. Since Vel'Koz is a long-range champion, I usually don't go for Ignite, but if you do want some extra kill pressure, you could go for that summoner. Exhaust is also a pretty decent option against champions that are going to try to all-in you, which is why I took it against the Echo in this gameplay. I don't take it as much as Barrier or Heal, but it is very viable. Your passive ability is Organic Deconstruction, which is a pretty solid passive because it allows you to do some true damage. So first, this makes your basic attacks not use projectiles. Even though they are of course ranged, it's basically like you have a melee attack that's ranged. This also makes Vel'Koz's abilities deconstruct enemies every time they are hit, stacking up to 3 times. Vel'Koz's basic attacks refresh deconstruction stacks duration on hit. The third stack consumes them all, dealing between 33 and 169 based on level plus 50% AP bonus true damage. This also only has a 0.5 second cooldown, so as long as you're landing your abilities, you can dish out a massive amount of damage with this passive. This is also really strong on Vel'Koz because your W ability hits twice and your ultimate hits multiple times, allowing you to proc this over and over again. It's a really strong passive that's going to reward you with more damage for landing your skill shots in succession. Your Q ability is Plasma Fission, and this does some really nice damage as well, and is a great poking tool. On first active, Vel'Koz fires an Energy Bolt in a line, stopping at the first enemy hit, dealing magic damage and slowing by 70%. After 0.25 seconds, you can reactivate Plasma Fission. On second active, Vel'Koz splits the Energy Bolt in 2, each firing in opposite directions perpendicular to the original bolt's trajectory, as well as copying its effects. This will also restore mana per target killed. So this is your main poking tool because it has a 1050 range, and since it does split, you can hit people that are running away from it. Of course, this ability also slows, making it really solid for landing your other abilities. During the lane phase, you can also use this to help you last hit because as long as you kill 2 minions with it, you will get the full mana refunded. You will, however, mainly want to use it as a way to poke the enemy champion. Your W is Void Rift, and this does damage in a line that hits twice and is great for proccing Thunderlord's Decree. Passively, Vel'Koz stores a charge of Void Rift periodically up to a maximum of 2 stored at once. When activated, Vel'Koz opens a rift to the void that cuts through the ground in a line, dealing magic damage and leaving behind a trail. After a 0.25 second delay, the entire trail detonates, dealing magic damage to enemies standing upon it. So since this ability does damage to everything in a line, it's great for wave clearing and still hitting the enemy champion. You can also have 2 charges of this at once, so although the AP ratios are somewhat low, you can use it twice pretty damn quickly. As long as you can land your E ability to suspend the target, it will be really easy to proc both portions of damage because they won't be able to move obviously. Follow it right after an E ability for really high harassment or to just clear minion waves. Your E ability is Tectonic Disruption, which suspends the target and makes your other abilities really easy to land. When activated, Vel'Koz hurls a Disruptive Anomaly at the target location, dealing magic damage and suspending enemies hit for 0.75 seconds. Enemies close to Vel'Koz at the time of impact are also slightly knocked back. So this ability also has a pretty low AP ratio, but it's not primarily used for damage, it's used for its suspension. As long as you can land this ability, you can follow up with your EQ ultimate combo and do a massive amount of damage and delete pretty much any champion in the game. Therefore, we'll just want to get 1 early point in this ability just so we can suspend the target and land the rest of our kit. And finally, we have your ultimate Lifeform Disintegration Ray, which does a lot of damage in a line and can delete pretty much a whole team if they are clumped up. So first, passively, deconstructing enemies marks them as research for 7 seconds, and basic attacks and ability damage will refresh this duration. So when activated, Vel'Koz channels for 2.5 seconds and projects an energy beam in a line. The ray's trajectory updates itself over the duration to face the cursor. Reactivating Lifeform Disintegration Ray immediately ends its effects. The ray deals magic damage in 0.25 second intervals to enemies caught in its wake and slows them by 20% for 1 second. Deconstruction is applied every 0.7 seconds to enemies up to 3 stacks. Researched enemies take true damage instead. So yeah, true damage in a line, that's why this ability is so ridiculous. It will also apply 3 stacks of your deconstruction, which will of course proc your passive once from just this ability. Since it is a 2.5 second channel and people can move out of it, you want to follow it after an E or a Q ability, or of course some of your team's crowd control. As long as you can keep a target in this ultimate, they're not going to live for very long. For your skill order, you first want to put a point into your ultimate whenever you can at 6, 11, and 16. Then you want to focus on maxing your W ability because it's really solid wave clear and does a ton of harassment if you follow it after your E ability. Then second, we'll want to max our Q ability because it does have a scaling slow duration and does some really nice poke damage. Then for last, we want to save our E ability. We'll just want to make sure we pick up 1 point in it at level 3 so we can actually suspend the target and follow up with the rest of our combo. Now in most scenarios, I like to start with my W ability so it can actually shove the minion wave, but you can also start with your Q ability if you want to go for poke instead. For your main combo, you first want to suspend the enemy champion with your E ability and instantly follow up with your W ability. Then shoot out your Q ability to slow the enemy champion, and if you have to, add your ultimate to finish off the target. During the lane phase, you'll want to focus on clearing waves with your Void Rift while also trying to hit the enemy champion with it and your Plasma Fission. You'll then also want to try to land your Tectonic Disruption on the enemy champion and follow it up with that Void Rift. You'll be able to get off both hits because of your suspension, which will also proc your passive and do a ton of damage. If you're level 6, then you can also add the Plasma Fission to slow the enemy champion and then kill them with your Lifeform Disintegration Ray. Remember that although you have high kill potential, you are very skill shot dependent, and if you don't land them, well, you're not going to do much damage. Teamfighting on Vel'Koz is mostly about finding a really good time to use your Lifeform Disintegration Ray to deal as much damage as possible to as many targets as possible. Hang out on the edge of your team and wait until your team engages until you go for your full combo. During this time, you can always toss out your Plasma Fission to poke the enemy champion and apply a slow that makes it easier for your team to follow up on. When you finally see your opportunity, use your EWQR combo to dish out as much damage as you can. Remember that Vel'Koz deals some nice true damage, so even if it's against tanky targets, you can still do a massive amount of damage to them, so do damage whenever you can. Now let's look at some of your hard matchups, and first up is Ahri. Ahri's a champion you're going to struggle against because of her damn ability. If you end up missing your combo and she's level 6, she can go for a very easy all-in. I'd recommend against an Ahri that you save onto your E ability because if you miss it, she's just going to go for an all-in and there's not much you can do about it. If however she goes for an all-in and you can land your E ability, you should be pretty safe to get away. Next here I have Anivia, and against Anivia you have to try to keep your range. If she can take away your escape route with a wall, you're pretty much going to be screwed. You have next to no mobility, so if you get caught by a wall, you're going to take a Q and then an E and probably end up dying. Keep your range, wave clear as much as you can with your W ability, and try to poke Anivia whenever you can with your Q ability. Next here we have Fizz, who's a champion that can all-in you whenever he wants if he does get ahead. Yet again, make sure you abuse your long range and poke him as much as you can, and do not get anywhere near him. You'll probably want to consider getting your tier 2 boots relatively early on so you can actually dodge his shark. As long as you can do that, there's not much kill potential. If it lands, however, CY @. I'd also recommend getting an early Banshee's Veil because it's not easy for him to take off, and it's great against the shark. And last here we have Xerath, who's going to be really hard for you because of his long range. Usually your long range is something you can abuse, but against Xerath, that's not possible. Since he's also a very skill shot reliant champion, consider getting those tier 2 boots rather early on. I'd also recommend a Banshee's Veil because it is pretty solid against his kit and can really save your life. Other than that, farm as much as you can and avoid his skill shots as much as possible. Alright, now let's finish this off with our item build, which starts with a Doran's Ring, health potions, and a warding totem. For your core build, you have Morellonomicon, Luden's Echo, and Liandry's. Morellonomicon is fantastic on Vel'Koz for that early cooldown reduction and of course Grievous Wounds. Your abilities can hit multiple targets so you can apply Grievous Wounds to an entire enemy team in a team fight. Luden's Echo will then increase your burst damage even more and give you some nice movement speed, which is great because you are a pretty immobile champion. Then of course you have Liandry's, which will be burning multiple targets since you have a lot of AoE damage, and the penetration is fantastic and it makes you just a little bit more durable at the same time. This is, however, the most replaceable item in that core build, so if you don't like it, you can replace it with something like a Banshee's Veil, Rabadon's, or pick up a Zonius if you're against a Talon or a Zed. For your boot options, you first have Sorc Shoes for magic penetration, or Ionian Boots for 10% CDR. Now for your item pool, you first have the Zonius. This is a fantastic defensive pickup on Vel'Koz because you are rather immobile, and if somebody gets on top of you, the stasis can save your life. Now Banshee's Veil is also a really solid defensive pickup as well. The spell shield it provides every 40 seconds can make you a lot harder to deal with because you're already at a pretty long range. It's great because of course your ultimate is channeled, and even if you get hit by 1 CC, it won't be stopped. If you instead want to go for a full damage AP carry, then you could get the Rabadon's Death Cap. This of course is the highest AP damage item in the game, and if you want to be a carry, you're pretty much going to need one. In the later stages of the game, then you may want to consider getting a Void Staff. Even though you have a lot of true damage in your kit, this is still a really solid item because of course you still do a lot of AP damage, and this gets you through any magic resist. You could always get a Rylai's Crystal Scepter as well on Vel'Koz. It's not that fantastic anymore, but if you want a bigger health pool, it's worth considering. For my full damage build though, I like to take that core build, get Sorc Shoes, and then a Rabadon's Death Cap, and a Void Staff. As long as you can position correctly, you can get off an absolute insane amount of damage in team fights and easily carry your entire team. Keep in mind, however, that you're going to be very, very squishy, and if somebody gets on top of you, there's not too much you can do about it unless you have your E ability to land on the enemy. But that is everything I've got for mid lane Vel'Koz. Don't forget to check out the video description below for a link to all my social medias. I stream every night but Tuesday at 7 PM Eastern now, and of course that link is down there. As is my Discord server and my second YouTube channel. Also, if you guys did enjoy the video, please make sure you like and subscribe, but other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys did enjoy it, and I will see you in the next one. Take it easy, have a good day, and peace.
Going